Okay, welcome to another episode of Mind the Music. It is the last one of the year. I'm so excited. It's like 2 years in a row already, and I get to finish off this year with May. Hello, May. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and I'm sure it will be so interesting to have this conversation around the creative sober, which I will let you dive into a little bit later on. But so before we do that, I just really want you to share with everybody who's listening, who's tuning in, a little bit more about who you are, where you're from, just a little bit of a backstory so we can get an idea of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I go through my alias Missing May. I've been in the DJ industry since 2003. And at an early age, when I was in Hawaii, I discovered dance music through warehouse raves, then making my move over to the US and discovering, even a bigger scene of what that looks like. And so that inspired my interest in dance music. And that's kind of how I got into DJing and did quite a bit of that and discovering what my creative niche is as far as music and the audience and even the community and the environment. And so I did that quite a bit until 2009, and kind of went into a gray area of what music looks like in my life,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the healthy aspect of it. So mentally, physically, as some of you may know, there's a lot of long hours and work that go into producing or DJing, and just even the lifestyle in general takes a lot of energy. And naturally, I come from an introverted perspective. And so a lot of that lifestyle entailed being extroverted. So networking, getting to know people, promoting yourself, a lot of that kind of took a toll on me. So I took a break in 2009-ish and started figuring out that I kind of needed a break from it. And so I decided that I wanted to focus my creative aspect into writing and just rediscovering who I was and getting healthy again. And I emerged back into music a couple of years ago. And just to give some backstory of that, I was in sobriety for about 4 years and then relapsed for 3 years. And so my new sobriety date is July 1st, 2019. So I have,
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. It's been
Well
quite
done.
a journey. It's been
Yeah.
quite a journey to relearn how to coexist with the music that I love and dance music, and then how to navigate all of that and still maintain a healthy mindset, stay healthy with my body, and keep that creative juice going, as I've learned to lean on alcohol and drugs to help produce or kick me up to that level where I felt like my creative confidence, a lot of that came from.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, this time around in sobriety, I'm really trying to navigate the thought process of I have to give up my music in order to be sober, which is what I did the first time.
So the
And
first four years, right, of sobriety. So
yeah,
that's
so
when you
first
you you gave up music.
I did.
Okay.
I just went really hard into the deep end of drugs and alcohol, and just not really knowing who I was as an artist. I got into a place where I felt like I was people pleasing,
Mm.
and in that approach, not really getting to know who I was personally. And so I became this image, the DJ image, and that pretty much is what I identified as.
Yeah,
So
so
I
you
needed
were
to,
more like an avatar almost of
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. yeah, it had the music, the network, the clothes, the hair, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it was just an image and almost like a shell of myself. And that's where abusing, alcohol and drugs came into what my lifestyle was. And so I wouldn't say it was rock bottom, but it was definitely, yeah, I guess it was my rock bottom, because I guess rock bottom really means is when you stop digging, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to figure out who I was. And so this time around, I want to be all of it, and like, why not? So that's where, I have some creative projects that are live now that I put 100% focus on, and it's keeping me engaged with the creative community and a lot of DJs who I can speak to, who I never knew existed.
Mm.
It's really easy to feel alone when you're trying to figure out who you are and still have this love of music, and on
Yeah.
top of that, be a sober DJ.
Yeah, I can
So
imagine. I wanted to go back a little bit to the first time around where you hit your rock bottom, let's say. How can you remember like where you were, what you were doing, what kind of triggered that moment, or what kind of brought about that moment of you feeling like, okay, this is my rock bottom and this is like for me now it's done?
yeah, well, this last year, when I came to, um, I remember it vividly. Um, July 1st, 2019, it was the morning of, and I came to. I had a pounding headache. Had a bunch of drinks the night before. And in the meantime, my DJ career was picking up. I was traveling, just getting to know different parts of the DJ industry, and it was inspiring creativity. But alcohol crept back in, and it was really taking a toll on me. And so July 1st, I remember waking up, and I was living in Colorado, Denver at the time, and I looked out my window, and it was the clearest, bluest sky. And I looked out, and I just felt this rush of energy, almost like a voice that said, May, you need to stop if you want to keep all of this.
Mm.
And I know it sounds kind of hokey, but whether it's my inner voice or a higher power of some type, um, yeah, I just really had to listen to it. And I have never felt that level of obsession, to want to make a change. And so that day,
It was loud and clear
I,
for you.
it was so clear. It was so clear. I can't, it's so vivid, as if it just happened. Like I dug up everything that I could, listen to podcasts, everything I could do to stay sober that day, and try to deter my routine, which is having a drink later that night, and then go into that whole cycle again. So yeah, it was more of a calling. I got to a place where I was enjoying what I was experiencing, and if I didn't take that fork in the road or make that shift, um, I knew where it was going to go. So I had to listen to it.
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, depending on what your belief system is, it to me it sounds like a almost like a divine intervention or something, like really something that called you to in time to say stop and really, take a different direction, sounds like.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so from that point onward, moving forward, you just mentioned changing up the routine, and the routine being usually having a drink later that night. That sounds really very familiar for me. It's something that it's maybe weird to say, but I like having a drink.
Hmm.
But it's really at a point in my life, more and more as I become older, and especially now that I'm a holistic coach, I'm paying more attention to that. It's really at a point where sometimes I do wonder, like, why am I having this drink? Like, why? why do I feel like I like, quote unquote, this? And so I wonder what it was like for you. Did you feel like it was difficult to not drink anymore in the beginning? And how did that feel for you is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, absolutely. It was that first day, that first week, um, is really, really intense. I mean, the first day, it actually feels like a withdrawal. Um, I mean, in hindsight, I look at it, alcohol we call spirits, and so at that point, I realized my spirit was depleted, and so I was filling it with this synthetic, uh, you know, uh, y- yeah, with this synthetic filler, basically. And there was a lot of things that I felt personally I wasn't also addressing or dealing with. And in that ball of time, I was also working on spirituality. And so, I had to rely on, I would say faith, but just spiritual growth, along with getting healthy in my body and mind. And it is really hard. And for me, it is in a level of addiction. And so I'm having to relearn what those triggers are if I do crave a drink, or even just mindfulness. And if I don't have that mindfulness, why do I want to check out? So there's that area, that space where I'm relearning what those fillers are. And so, or I wouldn't say fillers, but support, right?
Mm,
So whether it's meditating, whether it's 2 minutes or 30 minutes, or stretching and doing yoga, or just reaching and keeping asking questions of, what is my life and what do I want to do to design it? I have to keep searching for that. Um, and then also take a breath and feel gratitude and really just be in the present moment,
yeah.
be in the moment as if, when I'm having this conversation with you. So it's about that grounding. So it's ebbs and flows. There's good days and there's bad days, but it's like a muscle or practice as much as you would practice on the decks or what your set looks like. It's practice in the life that you want to lead.
Yeah. It's something that I like to call what you said, like fillers or support system. In my coaching sessions with my clients, I call them your happy helpers. So whatever it is that you need, whether it's from your inner world, whether it's from the outside world, whether it's, for example, nature, a walk,
Mm-hmm.
a mineral, a stone, the sea, maybe thinking about like somebody, like a historical figure that you can draw inspiration from. Maybe it's a person in your life, like your happy helper, like who is your, or what is your happy helper? And so that's definitely something that I also incorporate in my own life. And yeah, what you said about the grounding practice, that is something that in my life is so vital. I really need that every day, because if I don't do that grounding practice, then it almost feels as if I'm kind of going outside of my body, and it's like I'm no longer there. And it makes me feel
Mm-hmm.
really anxious and nervous and like, what's going on? And so, yeah, I can definitely relate to that grounding practice. What I also wanted to ask is, what about like cravings, like alcohol or drug cravings, like physical cravings or emotional cravings? What is that like for you? Like, and how do you um, cope with them?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's so much now. In definitely in the first year, in the first 6 to 9 months, the cravings were there. Um, it's taking it back to my routine. So alcohol is pretty much everywhere you go, in every situation, there is a way to get alcohol incorporated with it.
True. Very
Yes.
true.
Yeah. And yeah, so it's like breaking the almost like the ritual of it, whether it's for at dinner or celebrating or thinking it's a reward, or if we had like a bad day and you just want to check out, that kind of thing. um yeah, it's the craving is there. Fortunately, the industry has created non-alcoholic beverages, so there's alternatives out there and quite a bit of it now. um I think I read a blog somewhere, or it was like a news piece, that the non-alcoholic industry is set to be like a $3 billion industry
Wow, that's
by
impressive.
2021. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they span from non-alcoholic beer, seltzer, wine, and
Mhm.
even spirits too. So there's
Yeah.
that alternative there. So if for me it was just almost like a physical security of having something in my hand. And I've used this approach with even gigs, where just having a mixed drink that doesn't have any alcohol in it, but it looks amazing and fancy, and
Yeah.
just to have that there. And then it also helps deter, like, in a way, someone coming up and saying, do you want something to drink? Like, can I buy a shot? Or which is very common
Mhm.
as a DJ. It's like, here you go. Here, I'm good. I'm good. It's a really nice way to have that there, visually. Um, but yeah, I mean, to go back to answer your questions, the cravings are there. But for what I found for me is just to have a plan.
Mm.
So a lot of that is even preparing um, to go into an environment where alcohol is present, and what does that look like for me?
Yeah.
And if I go with someone, say, hey, this is my word if I'm like, this is my code word if I'm feeling uncomfortable, so that you'll know where I'm at, and either that person will leave with me, or I'll take what I call a timeout, a space to just kind of gather myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good strategy to have that code word and that space where you can, just regroup before you go
Yeah,
back in. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So it's been July 1st, 2019, right?
Hmm.
So what would you say in your journey so far has been the most beautiful lesson that you have learned as a creative? And I think it would be nice to go into your um, your channel and your community, the Creative Sober, with that, I would say.
I say I guess the beautiful moment about it is that it keeps growing, and it challenges me in all of the right ways, even if it includes exploring the things that I'm not proud of, or that I look back and I could have done that different.
The shadow
Um,
work.
absolutely, yeah, the shadow work, and I all of it. It feels worth it, and it just keeps it. Definitely at this point, it's bigger than myself, and to be able to learn how to trust it and lean in to what in the moment feels like fear, or those dark spaces, to trust it so that the beautiful experiences can keep happening, and the amazing connections that keep happening. um, I would say that's the beautiful part of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
that sounds beautiful for sure. And tell me about the Creative Sober for those of the people who are listening who don't know what it is. What is it? How did you started? Why did you start it? Tell us everything.
Yeah, I'm excited. The Creative Sober is an online community, and basically it's where a creative or artist, musician, DJ, where we can all come together and share our craft or our creation, and then also have the common ground of, having a sober life, whether it's not drugs or not taking or not drinking, whatever that looks like. So the pursuit of a clear life and remaining and creating, and so that was born for me on the first year of my sobriety, which was this year. And it all kind of made sense. It just fell into place where, globally we're going through this pandemic and the gigs were slowing down. I did live streaming sets and whatnot. And as much as they're fun, the type of engagement wasn't there, which, for me, music is connection.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, what can I do with this? I still want to learn about my sobriety and how to be a creative. And the best way that I have learned in this process is through stories.
Right.
And, that's the oldest way of communicating best practices and lessons, and then also being able to share your own truth of what that looks like. And in many ways it does help others, even if you don't realize it or not, just putting it out there into the universe. And yeah, that's how the Creative Sober started. And
Yeah.
it's just building blocks of that, and I've been meeting amazing people around the world. And yeah, it's just been an incredible process. I mean, I just recently spoke to someone who has never done drugs or drank, and
Wow.
that is just been his lifestyle.
That's
He's a
amazing. I can
musician.
almost not imagine that. It's crazy to say
Yeah,
even, but like, yeah, that's amazing.
yeah. But I feel like we've all been there, right? We've
At some
been
point,
there in
yeah,
the
hopefully.
yeah, yeah.
We
We've been
weren't born
there.
with like a glass of wine in our hands, that would be so weird. Or a joint or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my
So
God. Yeah,
it's
true.
been very eye-opening and inspiring to have these conversations. So I'm just really grateful that I got the download to, create the Creative Sober.
Yeah, it definitely sounds amazing. I know when I came across it, when I found it on Instagram, I was like, okay, this is somebody I have to talk to. Like this is somebody that, as you said, stories are so powerful and are really the way for people to, connect to, because you really, when you tell a story, you connect to, I would say, the deeper parts of yourself in whichever way you're telling it, whether it's really directly or whether it's maybe behind, like a third person
Hmm.
avatar or something, whatever that looks like. But I think those are definitely beautiful. And I think this is also the reason why I started the show, is to be able to tell stories and explore well-being and spirituality and just whatever I feel like sharing, whatever is on my mind then, and then have somebody else tell it for me, which is what you're doing right now.
Hmm.
And so what would you say to people out there who want to join your community? So who can join? What type of people are in there? What kind of activities do you do, or what can we do in the Creative Sober?
Yeah. Well, it's still fairly new. It's been a couple of months in, and right now I'm building, I would say, the criteria, but just the different pockets of what the Creative Sober is, because of the different mediums that come through. So whether you're a painter or a DJ or a musician or an author, writer, whatever it may be, I'm creating these different pockets where that can be shared or showcased. Um, right now we exist on social media. So we're on Instagram primarily, and we also have Facebook. And then there's a website that's being created as we speak. And then we also have a podcast, which is, on pretty much on uh, any major podcast platform that you can listen to. And we got a few episodes in so far. So right now we're just at that grassroots part of the project.
Yeah, which is
And
super
any
exciting.
yeah, it is. It is. It's
Yeah.
very organic,
Yeah.
and like I have moments where like, oh, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Let's do this. And yeah, it just keeps growing like a tree, like the limbs and the branches keep growing, and we'll see what that looks like. And yeah, anyone can join. I do have age restriction or on the Instagram part of it because there is some sensitive content that sometimes come through. And for us to heal, and kind of what my principle is being yourself and sharing what feels okay to you.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of vulnerability there, and then some topics that can trigger some trauma, and those kind of topics there. So there is something there that says, are you 18 and over, kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, for sure. Definitely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's wonderful. Awesome. So I want to dive into a little bit because we will have the holidays coming up. And so
Mm-hmm.
obviously for many people, including myself, that means, well, we will see how it goes, obviously with COVID, but for most people that will mean getting together with family or friends. And yeah, there is alcohol, right? There is wine with this and wine with that, and special beer here and special beer there, especially here in Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
um, but so what would your advice be for people who really want to go through the holidays without drugs and or alcohol?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, well, first of all, I would tell them congratulations, for choosing you, because without you, none of this can be possible. So, um, congratulations. And when going into those environments, what works for me anyway is just really understanding and knowing why I chose to have a life of sobriety. If you understand why you're doing it and what the intention is, there's a little bit more support when you're dealing with real-time situations when someone offers you a drink. And it's totally up to you whether you want to share why it is, or if it's just plain as no thank you, I'm good. um, for me, if I'm going into those environments, I mentioned that there's non-alcoholic
Mhm.
uh, alternatives. So if you feel like, oh, I do want to bring something, maybe just even introducing what that looks like, the bottle of champagne or wine. I've heard stories where folks have brought non-alcoholic wine and it will circulate through the party and
I
no
know
one
this.
has any idea.
I know. I've had this happen like personally. Like I would bring,
Really?
yeah, like I'm also a huge fan of like non-alcoholic alternatives, whether it's like for like I don't know, a spritz or like some Italian like whatever martini type of
Yeah.
thing, but non-alcoholic. And then, you kind of just put it on the table and you suddenly see people drink it and you're like, I'm just not going to say anything. It's really hilarious because the taste is good. So it's really more
Hmm.
about, I would say, probably the taste. And then people really be like, oh my God, I should stop drinking. And you go like, well, actually, you were not, but okay.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Loving it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many there's alternatives out there, and Um, and then go in with the plan. You know, if the environment doesn't feel comfortable to you, or at least if it gets to that point, give yourself permission that it's okay to leave. Like it's okay. That's self-care. If you're getting to a point where you just can't do it anymore, there's just it's okay to leave. You know,
Okay.
and I know that might feel bad. I know I've done it a couple of times where I'm like, I need to go, and just feel really guilty. You know, that I left the party, and that, you know, the voice in your head basically. And I just realized is at the end of the day, I'm the one who I go home with. And, you know, I'm not better for the people who are there at the party if my anxiety is running high, and, you know, all of this. I'm not even present at that point. So
Hmm.
we'll do everybody a favor and do myself a favor. And I'm just going to excuse myself and just say how thankful I was to be there for the
Yeah.
guests. So
It's definitely
yeah,
about
have
personal
a plan.
boundaries, right? It's like,
Hmm.
knowing where your personal boundaries are. And definitely, and this is something that I explain to a lot of people because I think many people don't really realize this, but your boundaries are about your own behavior and not about that of other people's behavior, because you can't control that. If you could, then that would be really freaky and the world would look differently, I would say. But anyway, it's about your own behavior. So it's really totally cool what you just said, to give yourself permission to be like, hey, this is not feeling good to me, so I'm out. Like, this is not what I need right now. And as you also mentioned, it's also better for the other people, because I mean, you're not going to be adding anything more positive to the atmosphere if you're just sitting there with your anxiety and constantly feeling guilty about it and thinking about the anxiety. And then, it's this vicious cycle, obviously. I
Hmm.
also liked what you said earlier about the code word. I think that's also definitely a good one to have. Maybe like, when you're going into a family dinner or something, maybe you can have a family member or your partner or whoever is with you that you trust to just kind of have that code word, so that you can maybe, I don't know, go outside for a minute together just to have a chat or whatever you want to do to regroup. I think that's definitely also a great idea. And then, other than the tip that you already kind of gave, when you're doing a set, again, we're not sure what's going to happen, but maybe in some cities or countries, it could be possible by the time it's New Year's. But so having that non alcoholic beverage looking fancy and like a nice glass on your DJ booth can be like a nice tip. Would you have any other suggestions or strategies other than the ones that you already mentioned, more general ones, but I'm sure they also apply to, DJing and gigging and etc. Would you have any other suggestions that are more specific to going into a context of doing a DJ gig or doing something creative during the holidays?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I found is, you know, it might not always be an option, but also picking the gigs that you're going to be at. You know, again, for me, music is connection. And so if I'm invited to do a gig, or there's a potential party that I could be spinning with, how do I feel about the environment? You know, I feel like I have enough experience to be able to know what that environment's going to look like, and then understanding what my level of engagement can be
Mm,
in
yeah.
that. And then also for me, I'm pretty open about where I'm at in my journey. I have I'm comfortable with that being part of my story. Just to see how being transparent about my journey has helped others, and actually draw out other DJs to do the same, is enough for me to say, okay, I'm on the right path.
Hmm.
And the more confident I feel of who I am, what my life looks like, and how music is my channel and part of that, um, all of the story needs to be there. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is for me. So
Yeah.
it just depends what you're comfortable with. There's different ways that you can approach it, whether it's picking the gig that you're going to do your set at, or having the drink behind the booth already, or this is who I am. No, thank you. I don't drink.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's totally up to you. So it just
Yeah.
depends where you are on your journey. And it's okay to reach out for help too. If you need to have those conversations or play out what that situation is going to look like with someone else who will understand where you're coming from, I recommend that,
Yeah.
just kind of playing out that scenario first.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then at least you can prepare and have the other person maybe be like the devil's advocate and try to draw you out a little bit so you can prepare for like unexpected replies maybe, or maybe people who might feel a little uncomfortable around you because of it or become defensive because of it. It can play out in many different ways. So yeah, I think practicing the conversation before going into it is definitely a great tactic, just to know where you will stand in the event that happens, and also knowing that you're the one that's not drinking, so you will definitely be lucid enough to stand your ground. I would say.
Yeah. Well, it's that practice again. I mean, we do a lot of practicing before we have our performance. So the practice invested in who you are, who you are as a performer, as well as the music that you're practicing. All of it comes together, and I think in the end, it just makes you that even better artist that you are in performance.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely about being, the more comfortable you become with who you are and your story and where you are on your journey, the less likely it is that something that someone will say will phase you, because you're just more confident in yourself and your story and who you are, and you can find
Who
that
you
peace and
are.
calm. Yeah, you can find that peace and calm. Yeah, for sure. So one last question before I round up. When was the last time you did something for the first time?
That's a great question.
That's one of my favorite
When
ones. Especially when I see people go like, oh, I have to think about this. And then I'm like,
yeah.
interesting. Now something good is going to come out.
Um, Gosh, when was the first time I did something for Well, the one thing that does come to mind, which is inspired by our conversation, is it was my first sober gig. That was really, really big for me. It was an underground party. Got to play my tech house and deep house and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
And but it's underground, so it's one of those parties. And I got to travel out of state, and then also do a B2B with another DJ and close friend, completely sober. And I was so nervous, like I was like shaking.
I can imagine.
Yes, yeah. And yeah, there was a lot of preparation I did for it. Everything that I suggested going into a situation, playing out the scenario, confiding in a friend, all of that. Yeah, that was pretty epic for me. And just to say that I did it, and I did a great job. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was, yes, all clear. It was clear.
And enjoyed
Got
it
great.
and
I
everything.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
got great feedback on it, and got even invited to do a couple festivals because of it.
Remembered
And
it afterwards because you
yes,
weren't lacking.
remember. Yeah, that is so huge. I look back, and there's so many gigs that I don't remember anything, and I don't even. That's so scary.
I mean, it's bad that I'm laughing with this, but it's just, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Awesome.
have to say, I think I just hearing like playbacks, I play a lot better.
Well, yeah,
without
because
drinking.
you're like consciously, intentionally doing the thing and not like feeling like, yeah, I'm so freaking awesome, but you're not. But you had something to drink or you took something and you don't give a fuck, and like that's what happens, right? Like, but if you're
Oh yeah.
sober, it's just, yeah, you're just really in it, like you're present, and
Hmm.
that's the
It's that
whole point.
transference of energy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just
As opposed to letting your ego drive. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. I think that's a really nice one to round up this conversation with. So people can find you on Instagram and Facebook, but you're mostly on Instagram, right? Like
Hmm.
mostly active there. It's at the Creative Sober, I think,
Yeah.
on
Yeah. At the
Instagram.
creative server. Uh-huh.
At the Creative Sober. So if people want to give you a follow and join your community and share stories and just follow the movement as it's growing and as it's expanding. So it's at the Creative Sober on Instagram. And thank you so, so much for joining in on this conversation. I really, really enjoyed it very much. And yeah, I wish you a nice end to this really crazy year. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I will
Me
talk
too.
to you very soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome.